Today, the Reserve Bank Governor confirmed what many suspected, that Australia's economy is already in recession. Later, I'll be talking to Treasurer Wayne Swan about the run-up to what he describes as a very tough budget. But it's not just the federal government that's feeling the financial pinch. Gosford City Council, just north of Sydney, invested millions of dollars in risky CDOs or collateralised debt obligations, complex mortgage-based products marketed across Australia by the now defunct Lehman Brothers Bank. With $40 million in write-downs already on the books, a group of local developers is now demanding Gosford City Council explain just how it will meet all its funding commitments to both ratepayers and business. And the bigger question still remains unanswered. How many other councils, charities and even super funds across Australia are also holding similar subprime time bombs? Matt Peacock reports on the fiscal fallout reaching all the way from Wall Street to Woy Woy.
It seemed as safe as houses. 4 years ago, Gosford City Council on the coast north of Sydney sank more than $100 million into a new type of investment, promising higher returns than the traditional government bonds. Now it might lose tens of millions and local business is worried.
If those funds cannot be recouped, then the population of certain areas within the city will lose out on having various works and facilities provided for them.
We want a ministerial inquiry as to how we ended up into this situation in the first place.
Of all New South Wales councils, Gosford invested the most in these products, but many others throughout Australia, from charities to super funds, have been caught by the crash.
This is a global crisis, and this has been reflected to every individual, every business across the world. So yeah, council's no different than the average Joe in the street.
What does make the council different, though, is that it's ratepayers and developers' money that might be lost. David Kettle, chair of the New South Wales Central Coast Urban Development Association, fears it may be gone forever.
My understanding is Gosford Council may be up for a loss somewhere in the region of $39 million, based on a recent report that went to council.
Instead of the traditional government bonds, the council bought an investment called a CDO, or collateralised debt obligation, a new type of financial package marketed by such former Wall Street giants as Lehman Brothers, that bundled good risks with bad.
A CDO is a bond that slices up ownership to about 1,000 mortgages, where maybe 100 of them are going to fail, up to 200 max is what the purveyors tell you, using statistics that are the wrong statistics. What actually happens is, rather than 20% failing and the 80% being safe and therefore AAA, up to 80% can fail, and that's what's bringing the system down now.
Last year, Lehman Australia, whose Grange Securities advised Gosford Council on its investments, went bankrupt. Moray Vincent was then head of Grange's structured finance team, responsible for issuing over $2.6 billion worth of investment in products like CDOs. He's now back advising the council as director of a new company, Structured Credit Research and Advisory.
We did believe that these investments at the time were suitable for clients, and on all the evidence at the time, they were suitable.
Although the CDOs were given AAA clearances by the rating agencies, the University of Western Sydney's economics professor Stephen Keane says the rating was based on faulty maths.
I think they're toast. I mean, some of these CDOs where they might have said that there'll be a 10% default and a 10% margin of error either side, so max under any possible circumstances 20% default. Some of these things are running at 70 and 80% default.
The best news is we haven't lost one red cent. There has been no loss to council.
How you going, Chris? Gosford's Mayor, Councillor Chris Holstein, can say that there's been no loss because the CDOs have yet to be sold. But if some were sold today, the loss would be massive.
62 securities, something like 42% of those securities for us are either raising and increasing their capital, or they are remaining stagnant. There's a 50-odd% that have shown a decline. But some of those don't mature for several years further into the future. So there are opportunities like your shares, like your super, and like the value of your house will continue to fluctuate.
Well, you keep saying you've made no losses, but in your financial report, you've got CDOs, investments that were worth 55 million, now worth 14 million.
Current paper figure, yes, they are. There is a write down on the paper figure at the current. Yes.
That loss has the president of the nearby Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, Matthew Wales, seriously concerned.
We've asked the council some very specific questions as to exactly what funds have been invested in what schemes. That is, the breakup of those funds. We've also asked the council what they're going to do if, when those funds mature, they don't recover all of the original capital.
The council's answer was that it receives a monthly assessment and update of the investment portfolio from Structured Credit Research and Advisory on a commercial in confidence basis. It's also receiving advice on the possible unwinding and early redemption of investments, and that advice too is commercial in confidence.
Councillors are given a regular update. Councillors are briefed on where they're sitting and what's the position on all of those and how they are currently rating and where we're going.
And what about the public?
Well, we put it out to the public. I'll have 170,000 financial experts who'll tell me you should have gone this and you should have done that.
Of course, a lot of our members and a lot of our clients are builders and developers.
What worries Matthew Wales is that a large proportion of the council's doubtful investments were what's known as developers' contributions. Money paid to council for community facilities like playgrounds and cycleways once a development like this one is completed.
The community is the one that's going to miss out because I don't believe there'll ever be sufficient funds to meet the expectations that we had in years past.
There's a substantial amount of funds we're talking about, over $16 million, and that's just with Gosford City Council. There could be other councils out there where amounts also could be affected. We understand that there's some $800 million sitting in council coffers from developer contributions across New South Wales.
The Master Builders Association's Peter Meredith now wants these payments delayed until building is completed.
This is an opportunity also for us to take approach with all councils, is to look at the possibility of deferring these contributions, especially in the current economic climate.
In the council's letter to Matthew Wales, its finance manager wrote that Structured Credit and Research and Advisory was also providing an independent audit of council's investments. But according to that firm's director, Moray Vincent, it's not.
We don't audit, Gosford. We don't have an audit relationship with them.
Only a year ago, Moray Vincent headed the Lehman Brothers team that advised the council on the investments in the first place.
The question you have to ask is, how independent are they? What we would like to see is somebody at arm's length from this process, that is, had no involvement in the past, to come in and do a truly independent audit.
The use of the word audit, says Moray Vincent, is not correct.
Well, it depends on your interpretation of the word audit. I would prefer the word independent advice.
I suppose the question is, if you gave the wrong advice then, why should they believe your advice now?
Well, I mean, we never sort of went out and simply sort of said, this is you should buy or you should sell. I mean, the sort of process, the sales process, certainly at Grange, with clients, was very much trying to explain these instruments to them, to explain the benefits, but also the risks of the instruments to them, and to let clients make their own decisions.
And the critical decision the council now has to make is just what to do with its remaining investments. It's already clear that some of its services will, at best, be delayed.
Whilst there may well be some loss in regard to the future, it will not seek for the contribution plans not to be adhered to. They will be adhered to. They may well stretch out further than and take longer to implement than what we had proposed, but they will be implemented.
The fact is the money's gone, and somebody down the track is going to have to pay for it. And the people who will pay for it will be the ratepayers.